Welcome to another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Well, RG3, Robert Griffin III, has weighed in on this whole situation out there in Cleveland when it's surrounding around the quarterback competition that was supposed to be an open competition. Robert Griffin III exposes the lies of Kevin Stefanski. But we're going to unpack all that here next here on the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Well, guys, man, we got to talk about it, man. The preseason has come to an end. The roster cuts are being made, and we got to talk about that situation out there in Cleveland. Now, we all know Kevin Stefanski, man. He opened this whole can of worms when he came into training camp saying that the 4 quarterbacks that was in camp, it was going to be open competition to compete for the starting job. And Kevin Stefanski already knew that Joe Flacco was going to be named the week 1 starter. So what Kevin Stefanski did, he opened up a whole can of worms for everybody to weigh in on the whole situation. Now, in this situation, we all know that Shedeur Sanders was being wrong, and a lot of people are using the word sabotage. And I use that myself because there's video evidence out there that you can particularly see what we're talking about when we're using the word sabotage. Now, Kevin Stefanski has been on the defense when Mary Kay Cabot asked a question about the narrative going around about him sabotaging Shedeur Sanders. And he kind of answered the question, which he should have left alone. And then he had a little chuckle and he said the best entrance is to groom these quarterbacks. Well, Kevin Stefanski, if you never would have stated that this was an open quarterback competition, people wouldn't be down your throat and on your ass the way they are, because everything that you said, it just was opposite. Now, when we're talking about an open quarterback competition, that means giving everybody a fair shake. In this situation, to be honest, you really never gave Dylan Gabriel a fair shake. You definitely haven't given Shedeur Sanders a fair shake. And this is where it all lies. This is where everything comes out. And this is when the exposure starts to happen, because everything that you said, all the video evidence, all the tape that we've seen, it shows a different perspective. Now, when you're talking about an open quarterback competition, let's dive deep into this. You're going to give me the same components that you given the other guy to see what they can do with. But you haven't done that. In Shedeur Sanders' case, the guy that he had made the most connection with, the wide receiver in training camp that he was thrown with, had great continuity with, you took that away from him. The last preseason game against the Rams, you put him out there with 3rd and 4th and 5th string guys that you knew was not going to make the roster, because the next day you let him go. Then you took away his receiving core that he normally throws to. Then you brought in a running back that I've never seen before, and you gave him them tools to work with. But you saw what you gave Flacco to work with the first team, and Dylan Gabriel the first team and second team. But if you go back to the first preseason game against Carolina, Shedeur Sanders had some tools to work with, and we saw a better outing. Now, Shedeur Sanders had a bad day. No excuse for that. He had 5 sacks. I put 2 of them on him because he was holding the ball too long, but the other 3, there's nothing else he can do. One time he escaped out of the pocket. They was barreled down on him. He hit the running back in the hands with the ball and he dropped the ball. That made him look bad. 3 of 16. I mean, three passes for 16 yards, sacked 5 times, quarterback rating of 52. But that's not what it's about. It was supposed to be an open competition. And you took away everything that Shedeur Sanders had before, and you gave it to Flacco and Dylan Gabriel. But you knew this wasn't an open competition, and Shedeur Sanders was wrong in the whole situation. Now, when you look on tape, you know what Shedeur Sanders is capable of doing. You see what he is capable of doing. That's why Shedeur Sanders got the mindset that he can change a franchise. Now, Robert Griffin III, RG3, has come out, and RG3 really, he broke it down well. We've given RG3 grief in the past because of some of his takes about basketball. But when you're talking about football, the ex-Heisman Trophy winner, he was spot on with his analysis and breakdown on this whole Kevin Stefanski situation and this quarterback competition debacle that's going in Cleveland. So let's take a listen to what RG3 said. But before we get off into that, we partnered up with Underdog Fantasy. And let's get a word from our sponsor.
Underdog Fantasy is the best way to play fantasy sports. Let me tell you about the easiest way to get in on some WNBA and NBA action. Find your player, pick higher or lower, win you some extra cash. Pick between 2 to 5 players to fill out your pick'em entry, get every pick right, and win some serious cash. Use my promo code SBD23 and receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Now that it's football time, follow Simply Ball Dropping as I share my picks. Like I said, pick your player, choose your amount, win money. Make picks, win cash. Thank you, Underdog Fantasy, for the partnership with us. And thank you for using promo code SBD23 on Underdog Fantasy.
Now, with that being said, man, let's get off into what RG3 said, man. And he broke it down eloquently. So let's take a listen to what RG3 said.
Shedeur Sanders was a 5th-round pick, but he ain't never been a 5th-round talent. That's why in his mind, he is saying, I can change a franchise if you give me the opportunity to. Right now, Cleveland is not doing that. I looked at the snap count chart. We'll throw that up for you guys on the screen. And people were saying, oh, he was playing with the same guys that Dylan Gabriel was. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He was not. He was playing with the 3, 4s, and 5s offensive line. How many sacks did Shedeur have in the game?
More than 5.
No, he had 5.
He had 5?
He had 5 sacks in the game, playing behind the 3, 4, and 5 offensive line. 2 of those sacks, he held the ball too long. The other ones, he never had a chance. Wide receivers, did he play with the same wide receivers that Dylan Gabriel did?
No.
No, he didn't. When Shedeur Sanders was put out there with the proper talent around him, he excelled. 2 touchdowns. Shined on the big stage. I know it was a preseason, but it was the most watched preseason game in over a decade. Shined. But when they put him out there with talent of guys that are not going to be on NFL rosters, that was the result. So when people say, hey, they're setting him up for failure, this is what they're talking about.
Exactly.
I believe the Browns have good intentions for all the quarterbacks in their room. I don't believe that their execution of making it look like they had the best interest of everybody in the room was there. How can you get a proper assessment of Shedeur Sanders if you don't allow him to play with the same players that Dylan Gabriel played with?
Or even give him the same opportunity of like running the 2-minute drill at the end of the game.
Which is just, again, doesn't make sense. You set yourself up for that. So I say that in closing that I believe the Browns need to trade either Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. Because right now, it's not about it not being fair for either guy. It's not a growth or leadership environment for either guy. And that makes it a bad, toxic situation around their quarterback conversation in the media.
Now, you heard what RG3 had to say, man. And I think he was spot on. I totally have to agree with RG3. Kevin Stefanski keeps going out on record talking about, the growth of these rookie quarterbacks and giving everybody a fair shake. And you know, the lies that Kevin Stefanski has told, I think RG3 exposed all them lies, man, because the situation is not beneficial for either rookie quarterback, Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, but most likely Shedeur Sanders. Because when people talking about, like RG3 said, talking about sabotaging a young player, this is what it looks like. I mean, all the video evidence and all the things, the film that we've seen, it makes you believe that there was some kind of, you know, tainting of Shedeur Sanders. You know, that's just going on the narrative with the collusion going into the draft and why he fell so late all the way to the 5th round, pick number 144. I mean, it's just video evidence out here, and the more and more people speak about it and bring other things to the light and bring things to the table, it makes you wonder, like, that is some sabotage stuff right there. That is setting people up for failure, because everything that RG3 alluded to, what we talked about, is taking away all your weapons and putting you out there with people that you knew that was not even going to make the roster. And also to not let him run that 2-minute drill to see what your young quarterback got to bring you back to win that game. And if he did that, then it makes Kevin Stefanski even look even worse. So what did he do? He took him out and let Huntley run it, knowing that Huntley was not going to be on the roster the next day. So what other tape did he have to see from Huntley? Because you knew you was going to release Huntley. You should have gave Shedeur Sanders that opportunity. He was already out there. He looked bad. Now, if that 2-minute drive, if he would have led that team down to, you know, to a score, that would have wrote all the wrongs that he had in the previous possessions, because now you know in a 2-minute situation, Shedeur Sanders can lead a franchise down the field and put points on the board. But RG3, man, he summed it up, man. Kudos to RG3 for coming out speaking up for Shedeur Sanders in this whole situation. And I have to agree with RG3. I see everybody down in the comment section, #salute. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your post notifications on so you know every time Simply Ball drops another hot banger. Oh yeah, just in case I forgot, tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. And this is going to wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. We're going to catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
That's all, folks.